Hey guys, welcome back. In this video we are going to finally work with the image view. We're going to allow the users to select an image, put that image into our Firebase and fetch that image from the Firebase and place it in the circle image view right there. So before we even get started with the tutorial, what I need to do is just a few changes to our code. In our main menu, we have our settings below our sign out. Now that's rather odd. It should be the other way around. Sign out should always be the last thing, just to follow standards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on top. Control Shift and the up and down button can be used to shift code around. So I'll make it so that logout and the sign out is the last thing. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I want to go into my Android manifest. So now, if we're going to set images, if we're going to select images from the user's phone, that means we'll be reading from their storage, and for that we need permission. So we're going to say read external storage, and also I'm going to put the permission to write to external storage. Right. Now, what I'm going to do first in this activity is show you how you can write code that will allow the application to go into the user's storage and select an image. So to do that, let's first put an on-click listener. So I'm going to say avatar, and I'm going to use an on-long click listener for this. Or actually, we want to keep this as simple as possible. So set on click listener, new on click listener. Now, by the way, like I said in an earlier tutorial, this account info is just there as a placeholder. So you could also put the option there if you wanted, but I'd like to use the avatar as much as possible. So anyway, here in our on click listener, what we'll need is an intent, and I'm going to call mine image intent. Alright, going to take the image intent and set type so that it knows what it's looking for, and what it's looking for is images. And then I'm going to put a slash and a star. Now the star tells it that it should take any type of image. We could specify by saying PNG or perhaps JPG, but we want our users to feel free to pick any kind. Next thing, we're going to set the action, and the action will be intent.activity get content. Okay, and the final thing we'll do is start the activity, but this time we'll start activity for result, and this takes in a few arguments. The first one is intent.create chooser, which takes in the image intent, a message, and that's it. That's all it takes. And then we need to pass in a static integer. So I'll just say pick, and I'll create it up here. And I'll say is equals to 1. Any number greater than 0 is fine. So let's run this and see what happens. So for this tutorial, I'm using my actual device. I'm using an actual phone rather than the emulator, because that's the only way I can get to my images that I've stored. And to do that, I'm using an application called AirDroid. AirDroid allows you to connect your phone to your computer and do a number of things, including casting your screen. So here it is. Here's my browser, and I have the AirDroid open. This is my phone. Let's switch it on. There we go. And there's my activity. So let's wait for the app to install. And there we go. So I'll go to my settings, right? And then I'm going to click my avatar, and there we go. We go to our storage, so it's asking us where we should open from. I'll select the gallery and literally any image. So I select an image and it takes me back to the activity, and now it wants to know what should we do with this image we've just selected. And what we want to do is we want to put it here. Now the first thing we'll do is we'll crop the image so that it fits perfectly into this circle. Now we could write the code for this, but it's rather long, so instead we'll just use a library that has already been created. So I'm going to go to my browser and I'm going to say Android image cropper library, and I'll put SoundCloud at the end. And this first one that shows up is the one that I'd like to use. Some very well written code. I congratulate the author. So it allows you to select an image and crop it. So if we scroll to where the usage is, it tells us the steps of using it. First though, we should include the dependency. So I'm going to copy this and back to Android, and I'm going to go to my build.gradle. So underneath the circle image view, we can paste this, but we need to change compile to implementation, and then we can sync. Now, as this is synchronizing, I'll go to my Android manifest, and as we can see in the, again in the usage, the first step is to declare this activity, crop image activity. So copy back to Android Studio, and we can paste this. This error doesn't matter for now. I can paste this underneath my last activity, which was the settings. Paste that. Okay. Then the next step is to actually do the crop. So let's go back to the Android Studio and write the code from there. No need to copy anymore. So close others. And what I'll do is I will comment out this code. And the very first step is to say crop dot pick image activity context. This is a variable we haven't created, so let's go to the top. Underneath context, we're going to say activity context, and we'll initialize it again here underneath the context in the initialization by saying activity context is equals to this. So this is what needs to be passed in, and there it is. Now this is some rather elegant code, I must say, because this alone does all of that. So very well written. Alright, so that's the first step. This will open up the image picker, allow us to go into our storage. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to handle what happens after we've picked the image. And to do that, we have to override a method called onActivityResult. So I can just start typing onActivityResult. It's the first one. I press enter, and the first thing I'll need is an if statement. And this will evaluate the parameters that were passed in. So request code and result code. So the first one is request code, and if it is equal to crop dot request pick, and if result code is equivalent to result.ok, then I want to begin cropping the image. So I'm going to make this method that I'm going to use this method that we have not made yet, and this method will take in this intent that has been passed, data dot get data. By the way, this is just the way the author of this library implements his code. So even if you go to the GitHub, you'll see pretty much essentially the same code. It won't be exactly the same, but it will be similar. Else if request code is equivalent to crop dot request crop, In this case, we want to handle the crop. So we'll say result code. No, sorry. We'll pass in the result code and we'll pass in the intent. Okay, now we can make these methods. So we'll do that right underneath, and I'll have Android Studio make it for me by clicking that light bulb and say create method. Okay, so within begin crop, what I want to do is first create a URI. I'll call it destination is equals to URI dot from file, and I'll create a new file and pass in the method get cache dir and pass in a string. Simply that. Next thing I'll do is I will say crop dot off, and then we need to pass in the URI that's in the parameters. So we say data, and we need to pass in that destination. And then we need to use a method as square, because like I said, we need this to be a square crop. And finally we need to start it. So we start this and we pass in the activity context, and that's all. That's how we begin our crop. Just 2 lines of code. Now let's create our handle crop method. So once again, Android Studio can do that for us. And again, I'll highlight it, Control Shift and down, so that it shifts to the bottom. Now in this one, we want to tell the application what to do with a cropped image. And what do we want to do? What we want is to store this image in our Firebase. But for now, just for the sake of an example, we'll just use the image in our avatar. So we'll say if, and I'll immediately create the else if. So if result code is equivalent to result, okay, let's leave that blank for now. Else if result code is equivalent to crop dot result error. So what to do when it's okay and what to do when there's an error. And if there's an error, for now we can just have a toast. So toast make text context, and we'll just get the error message. So crop dot get error. We need to pass in the intent, and we need to turn this into a string using get message. And then length can be long and show. All right, so what to do if it worked? If it worked, for now we'll just set the image. So we'll say avatar dot set image URI, and we need to pass in crop dot get output and pass in the intent, and that's it. So let's run this and see what happens. All right, we go to settings. We click our image view. Takes us here. So once again, let's select literally anything. We'll select this chess pieces, and it takes us to the crop activity, which is exactly what we want. And as you can see, it's a square. So let's put that there and crop. And there we go. There's our image in our image view. And because we cropped it as a square, it fits nicely within it, no black spaces in the borders. And this has worked perfectly. So next thing is, instead of setting the image immediately, we're going to send it to our Firebase, and then we're going to bring it back and set it to the avatar. May seem like a bit of a roundabout process, but in the end, our end goal is to have all these images within our Firebase. So we'll do that in the next one, since this has run a little long. Thank you very much.